Welcome to Season 2, Episode 2 of Landstown Listens, the show where we love to bother our favorite people about our favorite questions. Today, I have Miss Hazen, a lovable English teacher with an even bigger love of grammar. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
That's good. So what is your favorite thing about being an English teacher here at Landstown?
Well, I think that would be the fact that my whole job is just to sit and talk about books. Some days I sit and I imagine like what other people have to do in their like offices and on their computers and the weird things they have to do, and I just get to talk about stories all day.
That's fun.
So our sources say that you love grammar. So what do you love about it specifically, and what do you not like about it?
Well, grammar for me was really hard until I was in the 8th grade. My 8th grade teacher was absolutely phenomenal, and it just clicked. And once I got grammar, it just became, it just made so much sense. It's just my favorite because it's almost like the math of English, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Is the way we teach the way you teach grammar today different than from how you learned it in 8th grade?
It is. It's actually really different. I actually kind of don't like the way we teach it just because it's easier if you understand everything, every part of grammar. Only learning certain things just makes it confusing. So I think the way I learned it, I think it clicked for me because I learned it better. Mm-hmm. I learned what everything was. So every word had a part and a job, and it was just easier to understand.
Okay, that's interesting. So what's the craziest thing that has ever happened, rather in school or out, in your years of teaching?
What a good question. I think this one doesn't really sound crazy, but like in the moment, it really was crazy. You just have to believe me. This was back when I taught 8th grade in Newport News. I was proctoring an SOL, and it was really, really hot in the room that we were in. And so we had the windows open, and it was also kind of breezy. And so we were passing out the tickets and the sheets of paper, and all of a sudden, this breeze just took one of the sheets of paper, one of the blank scratch pieces of paper, Stacy Sayak, and it just blew out the window. And I just watched it like go down the street, and I kind of looked around like, what are we supposed to do? Because you know those materials are like so valuable, and you're supposed to keep them. And I would just panicked and had no idea what to do. But it was blank, so it was no big deal. I just gave another piece of paper and told him not to tell anybody ever.
Now everybody knows.
Now everybody knows. You can pull up my spot now.
So what are your favorite things to do outside of school?
Well, I love podcasts. True crime podcasts, to be specific.
Well,
or any like true crime documentary. I also bake. I love to bake.
Cool.
And I'm trying to pick up gardening, but I have the brownest thumb of them all, so.
What's your favorite thing to bake?
Cookies.
Ooh,
I make a really good white chocolate chip.
Ooh, cool.
Yeah.
What is your advice for students coming to your class next year?
My advice for my students coming to my classroom would be just mostly to pay attention, not to steal my students' advice that they gave this semester's students, but that's what they said. They said, pay attention to what Ms. Hazen says, because literally I'll give you all the answers like in class if you just listen. So.
Nice.
Pretty good advice.
So, yeah, thank you very much, Ms. Hazen. I also have here for us today Terrell, the man of many interests and one of the wildest people you'll ever meet. Hello, Terrell. How are you doing today?
Good.
So, you basically made friends with most of the English teachers, if not all of them in this school. So, what drove you to make friends with them specifically?
Just bothering Miss Hazen. It's fine. It's fine.
Nice. So, like, what's like your advice on talking to people? Because you love to talk to everybody and be friends with everybody.
I just gotta go for it.
Really?
Yeah.
Cool.
Wait. What's your favorite thing to talk about with English teachers?
Oh. Dolphins.
Dolphins.
Yes.
Cool.
Either that or my dreams. That's my random dreams.
Really?
Especially dreams of dolphins.
So, This kind of leads into the last question, but how do you like make friends so easily? Like, what's your advice on that?
Oh, I go out of my way to bother people. I guess that would help.
It just rubs off on them.
Yeah.
Cool. So what is the craziest experience that you've had with like a teacher or a friend?
I don't know.
It's good if you can't remember anything. We can just cut this out if you want.
Yeah. I do not remember.
All right. So, what's your inspiration for being the interesting person you are? Like, just doing like the most wildest stuff, like eating the entire apple core and all, and just like eating the weirdest food combos. Like, why?
Well, I said I would try everything at least once before I say it's bad.
Oh, okay.
And surprisingly, a lot of stuff aren't that terrible, actually.
So, like, what's the like grossest thing that you've eaten that you liked?
That I've liked? Okay, I will say the applesauce with mayo. I wouldn't recommend that at all.
Oh God.
With mayo.
With mayo.
With mayo.
It was worse because it was strawberry applesauce too.
Oh God.
It was terrible. I would not recommend that.
Worse.
No, thank you, Terrell, for the question and for the answers and stuff like that. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
We also have here today Miss Banks, a great English teacher with an even greater taste in music and even greater sense of humor.
I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, so when your students get to the point in the year where they read a book, you do things differently. So why did you choose The Children of Blood and Bone over books like Lord of the Flies and Anthem?
I chose Children of Blood and Bone because over the other books because one, the author, I first saw this book a couple years ago and the author was only like 26 at the time. And so I just had this feeling maybe or this guess that like, man, you know, students reading a book by a 26-year-old when they're like 15, so they're maybe 10 years off, you know, has to be more relevant and, you know, to their experiences than like Lord of the Flies or Anthem.
Yeah.
I was always wondering like why. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, that was probably the main reason. And also when I read it, I was just like, I love this book. I mean, as much as it does kind of drag, I won't say like it doesn't, because it's 525 pages.
Yeah.
And there are moments, even when I was reading, I was like, oh my God, like it's good, but this is taking way too long.
Yeah.
You know, to build up. So it's a very long book. But even while I was reading it, I was like, I still think this will, you know, impact students more than, you know, even more than Anthem or Lord of the Flies, which are also great books. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you think about Terrell coming to mess with you every day?
I absolutely cherish every moment that Terrell comes to visit me. You know, even when he steals my things or brings me a gift and then the next day takes it back, or comes in and says nothing but just has facial expressions, and I have to discern what he wants. So I cherish it every day.
Are you talking about the turtles?
I'm talking about everything. Okay. And I want my turtles back, by the way.
You have them.
I do?
Yeah.
Okay, we're good.
So what are some of the things that you and Tyrell like just talk about without him like stealing things from you?
Terrell and I have in the past, because Terrell and I have been doing this thing for like 2 years now, maybe? Or is it just a year and a half? I think it's like 2. And so it will be anything. I mean, it will be his interest in books. He'll tell me about things he's reading on, what is that, Webtoons?
Yes.
Yeah, he'll give me song selections. He used to come in and write songs on the board, and then he would talk to me, like we would analyze the songs, like, so that was always really cool. And then Terrell was also like my student. That's how we met. He was my student first, like 2 years ago, and we talked about Children of Blood and Bone, and like questions I would give. Like most of the bell, I think Terrell was probably like not paying attention to anything, right? But then he would go to do the questions, and like if I would give like an interesting question from the book, like I do now with like Ollie, if I would give an interesting question, he would come to me. He would be like, but what does this really mean? You know? And so we would go, you know, and of course like the English teacher in me, you know, that loves this book of Children of Blood and Bone is just like, yes, like let's go, you know. So yeah.
Cool.
So how did you even meet Tyrell in the first place?
He was my student.
He was in your student?
Yeah.
He was a student.
He was my student.
So you had him then your sophomore year, his sophomore year.
I think it was his junior year, because Terrell's a senior now. I think it might have been your junior year.
I think so as well.
Yeah, or something. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I didn't have English in 9th grade.
You did or did not?
I did not.
Right. So then he had Miss Hazen when he was in 10th grade as his 9th grade teacher, English 9 teacher.
Oh, that's how you know.
And then he was a junior though when he came to me and taking his English 10 course.
Interesting. Okay, so what is the funniest thing that you've seen in your years of teaching?
I've seen a lot of funny things, so I want to start with that. Okay, the funniest thing I've seen in my years of teaching.
Or funniest class?
I would have to go with. Okay, so there's two options. One, just this past year, I have a student in my second block that is in a wheelchair because his leg is injured, and.
I see him every day.
And yes, you know Logan.
Yeah,
you know, shout out to
yeah.
Logan. And he comes to first block right at the end of first block, so that you know he avoids the traffic. You know, and the other day, he was like last Friday, he was on his back in the wheelchair, like legs in the air, and I was just like, how did this happen? You know, like I'm gonna get fired. Like, what is going on? So yeah, that was probably the funniest. The second funniest was a couple years ago. I did something that was so funny that this kid started crying. So like he was laughing so hard that he started crying, and that's when I knew I was funny. I was like, I got something going on in this comedy game.
Oh God,
that's funny. Okay, so what's the worst book or movie you've ever seen to this day, and like why?
The worst book or movie I've ever seen.
Or you can name one of each.
Okay. I honestly have no idea because I mean I can always find something good, even in the worst like movies and even in the worst books. So I'm really struggling with the worst. So I'm not sure. I don't know.
I mean,
what would you say is like the best that you've read?
Favorite.
The best book I've ever read thus far is a book titled God Bless the Child by Toni Morrison.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that's the best book I've ever read. Best movie I've ever watched. I feel like I'm a little biased, but the best movie I've ever watched has to be Love and Basketball, like hands down.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Love and Basketball from 1999 or something.
Nice.
Interesting.
So, before we end off here today, Terrell, would you like to say something to the audience? Anything?
No, but Miss Banks, I think said 1999.
Yeah, I think it was 1999.
It's kind of old.
Podcasters, I just want to point out that I was just called old by Terrell. So here we are.
I mean, I wasn't even born then.
That's the point, Terrell. Okay? I have a passion for outdated movies.
Okay, sure.
This is why you cherish Terrell. Huh?
This is why I cherish it. And now, Terrell, your homework is to go and watch Love and Basketball and come back to me with all of the themes that are in there.
Can I just watch Interstellar
Absolutely
again?
not. Mm-mm. Nope. That's a good movie too, though.
I would have picked that.
All right. Thank you guys. So that concludes this episode of Landstown Listens. Thank you all so much for listening, and remember to fly like eagles.